So your seat good? Get the mirrors all adjusted? You can see everything okay? Just stay off the freeways, all right? I don't want you going out on those yet. Just leave your phone in your purse. I don't want you texting.
Daddy, okay.
Okay. There you go. Be careful.
Thanks, Dad.
Call me, but not while you're driving. We knew this day was coming. That's why we bought a Subaru.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends. This is Wednesday, September the 24th. We've got our consumer travel expert with us, Mel Zelenik, and we're going to talk about airfares today.
Airfares and some cruise stuff.
Okay, so you're telling me, we were talking before we came on, how important it is to do your homework with airfares and the airline, and you can do that on the line, on the internet very easily. And you had an example of one fare that varied by $1,200. The exact same flight, the exact same day, looking at the fare the same day also.
And it happens more frequently than you would imagine. And Paul, many years ago, we talked about these. They're called air consolidators. And for the most part, they're very legitimate. They're also called bucket shops. They used to be called bucket shops and so forth. But you do have to be a little bit careful with them. The example I gave you was a flight out of Columbia, Missouri to London Heathrow. And we just picked a day, the end of October. American Airlines, AA.com, had the flight for $1,616.
$1,616
Per person. But that does include tax.
Okay. That didn't include the pillow, though.
No.
But that was a one-way fare.
One-way fare, and that's somewhat problematic sometimes. But I showed you what...
And then you found the exact same flight on the exact same airline on the exact same day.
Same flight number.
Instead of $1,600, you found that flight for $478.
$78, yes.
But this wasn't on the American Airlines site.
No, it was not. And these are called air consolidators. And again, for the most part, they're very legitimate. You have to be a little bit careful with air consolidators.
Well, how do you know
Well,
that you're actually dealing with a legitimate company?
okay, let me give you some examples of what they can and some of them do. But here's one easy way to at least reduce the odds of getting ripped off, okay? And that's to just Google the name of the company and ask for reviews. And if they consistently have bad reviews, that's somebody you probably want to avoid. Like in this case, I would not book this $478 flight until I checked out that company pretty thoroughly. Now, there's always some risk, of course, but if you put it on your credit card, you do have some additional rights, obviously. But I checked this with American Airlines and affirmed what I already knew, but I wanted to make sure. What I tried to do is see if they would match that price.
They're not going to match that price.
And they're not going to match that price. But what she told me was, yes, these are legitimate. These are travel agencies, air consolidators, if you will, and they buy in bulk, she said. And therefore, they're able to, I'll quote it, travel agencies purchase in bulk, and they can sell for whatever they want to sell it for.
So in reality, what they did was they bought a bulk of seats on that particular flight, and obviously they got it at a much lower rate from the airline, and now they're going to sell them to the public at a lower rate than the airline's going to sell them, but at more than what they actually paid for.
That's
it.
correct.
So they make a profit.
That's correct. And many travel agencies, and I don't want to say all of them, but many travel agencies can get you better deals on with air consolidators. They're still going to make a profit, and frankly, you may not know what their profit is, but you don't really care if they're making a reasonable profit and you're saving a lot of money.
Now, if you buy a ticket through an air consolidator, are you able to change it? Or if the flight is canceled, who do you go to? Let's say you bought this ticket from an air consolidator and that morning the flight is canceled because of bad weather. Now, you didn't buy it from the airline directly. Are you going to be protected on the next flight?
And I don't honestly know the direct answer on that, but I mean, you could back that up. My gut feeling is, sure, you're going to be protected. Okay, that's my gut feeling, but I don't know the answer to that, Paul. I'll check it next time I come on. But you can always buy travel insurance that's fairly minimal. There's some great companies that sell travel insurance out there. And that would be a way to mitigate that concern that you might have.
Okay, because that is a real concern.
Well, it is. And by the way, some travel insurances are on annual plans. And that's something that somebody travels a lot may want to consider.
Okay. So what you're saying is consider
air consolidators. Check them out. Now, in this case, by the way, I just went on one of the websites for a cruise line, and because they're selling very competitive airfares as well for this kind of situation. And I checked it out, and they were selling the same flight for $500 and some odd. It was quite a bit more than this one, but it was certainly less than $600. That told me that what this other company is doing is probably legitimate.
Okay. I wanted to touch on one other thing, which you told me now airlines are catching on to. Many times it's less expensive to buy a round-trip ticket. If you just need to fly one way, it's less expensive to buy a round-trip ticket than it is to buy a one-way ticket. And some people would buy a round-trip ticket, which seemed legitimate to me, and then you don't use the return, and you still paid less than if you bought a one-way ticket. Mm-hmm. But you said airlines are now catching on to that. And if you buy a round-trip ticket and don't use the...
It is possible that they're going to come back and they're going to charge you for the one-way fare. And you have to be very careful there. So 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, as a matter of fact, I used to tell you to do that on the shows, but that's all closed up.
Okay. All right. Everything is changing now. Especially
a lot of it's very, very positive, though, especially some of these flights out of Columbia. A lot of people don't take advantage of them because they always think St. Louis and Kansas City will be better values. And that's not always the case. As a matter of fact, many, many times, Columbia, when you think of all the total costs, is going to be a better price value than St. Louis or Kansas City.
So you take in the cost of driving and then spending the night, or parking, where it's free parking here in Columbia at the airport.
So far.
Mel Zelenik, thank you so much for coming by. If people want more information, the best thing to do is
to email you, and then you can forward me. And I'll tell you why. I don't really have a
right.
Good
You don't have an email
address.
Okay, Mel Zelenik, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you here. I've learned something from you every day. Our program directed by Travis McMillan, Reynolds Journalism Institute. Audio is Pat Akers from KBIA. Our floor director is Daniel Shapiro, and our assistant producer and guest coordinator, Uncle James Mauser. Bye-bye.